Warning: after listening and watching to content from George Billionaire, your mindset is definitely going to be transformed. So every Monday we do what's called Hustle Hard on Capi Talk 100.4 FM, and I've been doing this now for nearly 2 years, and it's amazing the amount of feedback I get from people who have applied the things that I've been talking about and how their lives have been transformed. And sooner than later, that's going to be you too, DMing me, giving me a call from wherever you're watching from around the world, saying, you know what, shout out to you, George. Because of you, I eventually went on the journey less traveled. I jumped off the ship. I began to believe in myself, and I started. The one thing that I keep telling people is that we're not meant to be ordinary and average in this life that we live, but we're supposed to become what God purposed us to be, which is we need to max out our potential and bring to life a business, become the best in your industry, become at the top level management wherever you are. Average is not what God sent you here to be. So today we're going to be talking about an amazing topic. We have two options. Either you'll find a way, or either you're gonna find an excuse. Two things. Make sure you tune in, watch until the end. Remember, click subscribe, and make sure that you're always tuned in to Hustle Hard series, to the School Run Diaries, and the many videos I've done on all social media platforms: YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn. George Billionaire. Let's go.
I need to be motivated. I almost made an excuse to not come to work today. Almost. So I love this topic. You will either find a way or find an excuse. This phrase basically emphasizes the importance of taking responsibility for one's actions and outcome. It also suggests that individuals have the power to choose between being proactive or making excuses. George Billionaire in the building. How are you, Bill?
Holla, holla.
Uncle Bill.
It's your
Somebody
boy.
called you Uncle Billy on the WhatsApp. I'm like, I like it. I like it.
It's your boy, George Billionaire, with Nash, aka Nasipi. Yeah, in the
The
building.
what, queen?
Yes.
Say it. We'll find a way or find an excuse.
The Tosa Queen.
Here we go.
That's right. Here on Capi Talk every single Monday, Hustle Hard. And I'm excited about today.
Why?
And
what's special about today?
Last week we were talking about people's opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And
that one made quite an impact,
and you shouldn't worry about what people say, because people's opinions should never become your reality.
Yes.
And this year is going to be an amazing year for so many listeners up and around the world, listening to us, watching us wherever they are. Because I can guarantee you, tuning in to this program by the name Hustle Hard every single Monday is going to put in some amazing nuggets, some wisdom, that most importantly, if you apply in your life, you will become a better version. And this is what we're doing every single Monday. And I'm always so impressed by people coming up, walking up to me saying, George, thanks. I listen to your show. Choose your heart. Start where you are. Association for Greatness. People actually saying, I actually record the show every time you're on, so I can replay it with my kids. We've got some army guys who listen to this show. Shout out to all those army officials who are listening in.
Alternatively, you could just get the recording from us and just put it on a podcast.
Yeah, that is absolutely amazing.
Because people will be like, okay, so what do we do if we missed it?
Nasipi, true that. But it's always there on George Billionaire's YouTube channel.
That is true.
So we've got Hustle Hard running on there. So if you've ever missed a Hustle Hard series, go on, search George Billionaire on YouTube, and you'll watch all the Hustle Hard series being streamed there. But Nasipi, today, it's an amazing day. I'm so excited because this topic is something that a lot of people always do. There are two options in life. Two options. It's either you're going to make a plan, or you're going to find an excuse. You're going to find a well-educated, elaborate, very nice sounding excuse. Or otherwise you'll make a plan. And those are the two definitions of the people who are existing today. So there are people, I remember on the show here in Zimbabwe where we are, people were anxiously awaiting for the elections that happened. And that was their reason why they were holding back and not starting. And they're saying, listen, I'll start after elections. elections came and went.
That is true. I kept hearing that excuse a lot, actually.
People know I'm waiting to see the political climate, how is it going to be, so that I start my business, so that I start building, so I start investing. Right? And that came and went. There are others who were waiting for summer. There are others who are waiting for 2025. There are others who are always waiting, right? They always have a reason why they are not doing things. But one of the things that they don't have a lot of remaining is what is called time. The amazing thing about this thing called life, the best blessing that ever happened to anybody, is that two things are certainly going to happen. And one of them already has happened. We were born, and then the other thing that's definitely going to happen sooner than later, we're all going to die, right? Those are two very definite things that are going to happen to everybody who's listening to us now or in many years later. You're born and you're going to die.
Even today.
It can happen at any time, and people think they have time. Nash, people think they have time.
Really do.
This is why they keep giving these excuses. We spoke about a very horrible disease called excuciticis. This is a very... Excuciticis is one of the most contagious diseases which has caused many people to die full, to go to the graveyard full of potential. They could have achieved and amassed so much. They could have brought so many businesses to life. They could have recruited many employees. They could have become somebody who brought something to life.
I remember a pastor saying there's nowhere else in the world that has more talent than a graveyard.
The richest place on the planet Earth. That's the legendary Miles Monroe telling you that the richest place on planet Earth is the graveyard, because people died with that disease called excuciticis. They were so always procrastinating. They were always putting things off. They were listening to the opinions of others so much that the time came. And like we said, time, you don't know what time, you don't know what hour. The best thing about life is that you never know. Some may live to 100, some may not see tomorrow. But what you do with the limited amount of time you have is what matters. So there are two types of people. Ones who make excuses, which are some of the listeners listening today. Because if you see where they are today and where they could have been, the only thing that has stopped them from being where they're supposed to is the excuses. We live in an environment where people blame politics. They blame the government. They're waiting from a handout, from a bank loan, from an uncle, an aunt. They are waiting for somebody to pull them up. But that's not how this world operates. This world operates specifically to those who are willing to do what others are not willing to do. And if you're an individual who's always making excuses, you're never going to get the life that you want. You're never going to get the results. You're always going to be in that horrible place where nothing grows, called the comfort zone, because your excuses are bigger than what your life could be. And I remember with Pro Air, had I not started Pro Air, we were talking about this last week about my dad telling me, you're not going to make it, people coming up with all this. I could have made an excuse to say, but look, there's so many air conditioning companies. There's so many people doing this. But because I chose to make a plan, I stuck with it. I believed in it. I worked hard at it. I now am living a so-called better life in my eyes than the one where I was earning $300 years ago.
I think it's unanimous. It's not just your eyes. You are definitely living a bit. From $300 a month to, I'm assuming it's more now, George billionaire.
Yeah. And this is the thing with the two types of people that are there. So the ones who make excuses will remain on the job, the just over broke job they have. And provoking as it is always, I tell you this, remaining on that one stream of income, keeping on making excuses that the money is not enough for me to start anything. Don't worry, sooner than later, you're going to get that letter to say, Nasipi, thank you for your time. We now have found another DJ to take over your shift. And then a reality will come in to say, I wish I had started. Dai ndakatanga paya paya. And this is my message to many people out there. And then on the other hand, we've got the people who make a plan. These are people, no matter where they are, They are not bothered. And you know, I love this beautiful country called Zimbabwe, because if you go north, south, east, west, anywhere you go in this country, I'll tell you today, somebody saw a brand new car, you saw a building you had not seen, you saw roads being fixed, you saw something happening.
Yeah, people are doing things out
which
here.
tells you that there are others who are making a plan whilst you are holding on to your excuse. And your excuse is going to be the biggest hindrance to you ever making it in life. People who make a plan are people who are focused, people who don't listen to the noise, people who are determined with achieving a better lifestyle than they grew up having. Some of them may have worked in institutions before, but they said, like I did many years ago, you know what, there's a better life on the other side of the door many call fear, that door of the unknown. Why don't I just try? And those who make a plan are those who are bold, who are courageous to say, you know what, there's nothing called failure. I've said this before. People define failure as though you have not made it. But successful people will tell you that they failed 1,000 times, many times, before they reached the destination called success. And failure is actually a bridge to success. So people who don't ever try anything new don't ever get anything done.
I love that. Say that again.
People who never try anything new never get anything done. If you are doing the same thing over and over again, that is the true definition in the Oxford Dictionary of the word called insanity. Kupenga. Ururamba uchita the same thing over and over again. And there's nothing different that's going to come out of that.
Because you're going to get the same results.
So imagine with your one stream of income you have right now, and I keep telling people that automation, AI, I gave a statistic the other day that 85 million jobs are going to be lost in the next 5 years, which is 5 times the population of Zimbabwe. 7 actually, right? It's going to be lost. Imagine that. And some of you here are holding to life on your job. And in a year or two's time, you're going to see the reality. I think already we've seen it with people now being retrenched and now being forced to make a plan. But while you could have started something, while you could have made a plan, you didn't. And this is why I am giving a call to people out there that don't be one, after listening to this program, to keep on holding on to your excuses. Be one who makes a plan. And, you know, I was talking earlier on to a group of my mentees about, you've never seen successful people, and this is so true, because a lot of people, I mean, I can get a lot of backlash on this, but such is life. People who make progress are not really concerned with the opinions of people.
Exactly.
Successful people don't have time about what people are saying, how they made their money, etc. And I'm going to talk about a couple of individuals here in the country of Zimbabwe. We've got the likes of Sir Wikno Chivayo, who is doing some amazing work in his own regard. People may not understand what he's doing, but we're seeing pictures with him meeting presidents. And guess what? He's making a plan. Whilst you are busy wherever you are sitting, you have not even met your own local president. Somebody is going out of their way with their own resources to go and build relations for potential businesses. You are here going on talking about somebody's past, and yet they are creating a future with more and more presidents around the world, which ultimately will lead to more and more wealth amassed by a specific individual. Whereas you are there critiquing and wanting to analyze and calculate and do all these things while somebody else's life is progressing. That specific individual is doing what is called making a plan. They are doing what everybody else is not doing by going and meeting heads of state. I mean, that's amazing, because that's what you call networking. That's associating with the greats, with the decision makers that can point out to you in their countries. That's thinking international. Most people here, you're just thinking local. You're a Glenora champion. I talk about Glenora because that's where I came from. You're just focused on Glenora, but somebody's thinking, wait a minute, my solution can not only be one for Zimbabwe, but I can provide a solution for Africa at large, and then the world secondly. That's actually making a plan.
What do you actually think it's fundamentally comes down to between the two different kinds of people that think that way? The people that think locally or regionally, and people that think globally, essentially.
It begins by having
both of them, let's say everything is the same. They both have the same living situations. No one got a silver spoon in their mouth or a leg up from their family. Assuming they grew up the same, everything is the same. They both from Glenora, you said. What would be the fundamental difference between the two of them thinking differently like that?
So exposure is one of the greatest things that changes people.
Hallelujah, thank you, Jesus.
Exposure. I say this all the time. The most dangerous person on planet Earth is one who has been exposed. I give this quote a lot of times. You don't know how poor you are until you go to a rich man's house. When you go back to your own place of residence, when you've been to a rich man's house, you are not the same, because you'll see, you'll experience, you will be exposed to certain things you never had before. So when you come back, you're going to be different in the way you think. What you thought was comfort and okay is no longer comfortable. And the thing about exposure, it's not explainable to people. I remember being in somebody's car that had electronic seats, it could do all this, a lot of things. When I went back in my car, I was not okay because my mind was stretched. It was like, no, good driver. There's a different level to things. So when somebody is exposed, they get a different hunger compared to others. But there are other people where I grew up back then, they think $100, $1,000 a month is fine for the rest of their lives. Where others are looking for $1 million, others are looking for 100 million, others are looking for billions. So it depends with what you're exposed to. So, in regards to the individual I spoke about, they're exposed to certain things. We've got the likes in here in Zimbabwe. We've got Mr. Kudata Gwire, who's doing great things in the country. As much as people will critique and say this, that, and the other, these people are making a plan instead of making excuses. In the same country we are all living, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. But these people are making a plan and expanding their horizons. We've got Dr. Philip Chiangwa, right? Many years ago, he invested in land, right? And what he's doing now, I think we've seen on the news, he is now disposing that land at an amazing amount of money. And this is somebody who is not making an excuse in the same country. The list can go on. I could name the many greats here in the country of Zimbabwe. We've got Scott Sakupwanya, who started a football club just last year in 2023, right? And in a year, that team was promoted into the Premier League, right? That's a person who is making a plan. He's actually trying something. And guess what? That something then worked. And because it worked, look how many sponsors and people came on board to support his vision because he started. So that's the same thing with you. You will never know who will be coming to buy your products, support your business until you start. The people who make a plan will always have more than the people who are making excuses. You probably had the same idea to say, I want to start a football club. And this, that. It's all in your mind, but you never executed it to actually begin. But when you begin, sometimes it may take you 1, 2, 3 years of what people deem failure, but there are always lessons in what people deem as failure. I always quote the term fail as first attempt in learning. There's always a first time to learn something until you get it right. So we are always human beings who are learning. And to all these greats who are in the country of Zimbabwe and everywhere else in the world, they are great because they choose to make a plan rather than to make an excuse. People who make an excuse die full, when our purpose on this life is to die empty, having fulfilled every single thing you were supposed to have fulfilled.
Okay, I'm glad you
But most people are okay. They are all right. They are comfortable. They are eating hand to mouth. They are not under pressure to do more. They think, no, George Billionaire on Hustle Hard. Everyone can't be an entrepreneur, George. We can't all be like you. But get this correctly. Sooner than later, you will never know your true potential until you try. You will never know what you can be until you try. Once you give it time, once you give it effort, once you put in your all in something, you'll be amazed at what you can be. I've said it before that human beings have unlimited potential. Unlimited. I've said it, a dog was meant to be a dog. A tree was meant to be a tree. But a human being was not meant just to have one job for the rest of their lives and earn what is called a salary.
There are some trees that are doing better than most people. They've diversified into paper. They've diversified into tables, into chairs.
But that's a human being who saw that tree and said, I can make a chair, I can make paper. So human beings have that. You see, that's seeing an opportunity, right? People who make a plan do not pass off opportunities regularly. People who are poor, which is the abbreviation of poor, are people who don't pass off opportunity regularly. They see something and they can convert it into something. But whereas others will pass the opportunity and say, no, that's just a tree for shade. But only a human being can say, wait a minute, I can turn that tree into a pencil. I can turn that tree into a paintbrush. I can turn that tree into a chair. I can turn that tree into something. So that's the unique ability as human beings we have. And, you know, I love this. One of my favorite movies of all time. I highly recommend this to people, especially when it comes to mindset transformation. There's a movie called Lucy. All right, and people should go and watch that. It's about this woman who then begins to use up her full potential of her mind.
Yes, that movie.
Yeah, it's an amazing movie that just shows you how little of your mind you actually use compared to how much you can actually untap the more information and knowledge you have. And the key thing with information is that there's a quote that says knowledge is power, but that term is actually a big lie. Because knowledge is not power, because otherwise, with all the graduates we have in the world, they should be financially stable with the amount of knowledge they would have amassed.
True.
But knowledge is not power unless, and hear this, unless it is applied. That's when knowledge comes to work.
Do you think maybe someone cut that off? People love to cut off phrases and use what suits them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Knowledge is power unless it is applied.
True.
That's the full thing, guys. I'm convinced of this. So, George, let's take a quick break. There are some very interesting messages coming through on the WhatsApp. Just the quickest one. I know you don't like breaks, but just the quickest one, because I need to read and make sure that this is something that I can read on air. You said something that I think maybe rubbed someone the wrongish way, but stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay, somebody come through and says the mention of the personality that you chose as an example. I think it was the land one. Yes. So the mention of the personality you've chosen and the high regard accorded for who he is and what he's doing just killed off the essence of the entrepreneurial urge. Businesses are supported by ethical practices for sustainability. I guess that's just my 2 cents.
And I say to people all the time, and it's a pity that people will fail to receive certain things from other people because they are willing to criticize but never understand. One thing I've deliberately done, especially with individuals that I do business with, I actually get to understand where they are, where they're coming from, their story, and what they're doing. But most people are so quick to criticize success, and this is why you'll always remain poor. When you're always going to be a critic, somebody who mocks, somebody who speaks lowly of people, somebody who doesn't acknowledge the success of others, when others are celebrating, you don't clap hands and celebrate them. My brother, my sister, what you can never uphold, appreciate, and celebrate, you will never ever taste in your life. So if you're always going to be a critic, analyzing, thinking this, that, and the other about people and how they made their wealth and how it was this, that, and the other, I can guarantee you just by your question alone, you will not reach a certain stage until you have first-hand information of people you are talking about or criticizing. When you sit down and you specifically talk about people, not to assume, because a lot of Zimbabweans and people around the world, we like criticizing so much. We don't like to see the good, the hard work that somebody did, the extra effort somebody went out to get a project, a deal, a business, land, whatever it is. We shoot that down. But that person did something that you did not do, which is why they've ended up where they are today. So we need to stop being these critical individuals. And like I've said earlier, real, successful, wealthy, made people, you'll never hear them criticize a single human being. They will actually be like, wow, I got a lot to learn from this individual. Because for them to do that, they must have done something different. And that's what sets us apart. So this that the person asked is an excuse to validate their own lack of self-accomplishment by trying to shoot somebody else down. Instead of shooting people down, see realistically what can you learn from this individual. And if you don't have a chance to learn, maybe try and research a little bit before we speak ill of others. There's always a great story from people who've made it in this beautiful country of Zimbabwe and people around the world. It's amazing how we'll celebrate an American icon who we don't know how they made their money. But here, you are so quick because it's too close to home. But there's a lot to learn from the many greats in this country. And I've listened to, the names I mentioned earlier. I've listened to some of their podcasts, listened to some of their interviews, and you can tell the sheer deliberate association, the sheer deliberate travels, the sheer deliberate going out of their way to get certain things done. But that's never shown. All you see is the captions at the end of the movie.
That's true.
But you don't see how it began. And that's where people lose it. So let's not be quick to shoot down people. Understand. Learn. There's so much to learn from the many greats instead of your opinion of shooting people down and making yourself happy by rumors and all this unnecessary hate.
Axel Mandi for this violence, but thank you so much, George. My Juju here, thank you so much. This was such a great revelation. Just watch this space. That is from my Juju. And then Zwandile from Grayston Park is saying, I know someone who suffers from the disease of excuciticis. That one. Uti, every time I ask him to do something, he gives an excuse. The other time I asked him to do some research in November, he said he will do it. We are at the end of January now. Has he done the research? No. As for me, I always come up with a plan. My latest plan is to start a school of ministry, not only at my church, but within all churches. Thank you so much for your show and for your advice. This is from Mzwandi.
Wow, amazing.
And then this one is in Shona. Let us attack. Anzi, vamwe vanomirira kuzotanga something kana vane mari yakwanda, but chero mari unotanga business.
That's right. Vamwe vanomirira kutanga vane mari yakakwana, but vamwe vanotanga neyavainayo. So basically that's just saying that it's important to start where you are. There's no amount of money that is enough to start a business. I say the greatest secret to getting ahead is actually getting started where you are with what you have and get rolling on. So don't wait for the right time to say, no, I'm waiting for the perfect time to start.
Like
There's
you
nothing
said at the beginning
called,
of the show, just waiting.
That's it. You're going to keep procrastinating and pushing it further and further and further. But start small. Don't be ashamed of your hustle. Don't be ashamed. If you're selling freezers, make it known. Start with, a packet of freezers. Start somewhere where you are. And if you are faithful with little, soon that little will become much. But you will never become much until you start. So we need to really differentiate ourselves from being people who suffer from the disease called excuciticis. In this life we live, there are two options. You're either going to live a life full of excuses, which is not going to be the best life. You're going to live a just over average life. You're going to be looking and saying, wow, those people are living their life, they're traveling, they're doing this. But that's because of the excuses you're making. But if you choose today to make a plan, to say, you know what, kusiri kufande kupi. And I love that sentiment. My mom always used to say, listen, George, kusiri kufande kupi. Just, why not just do it? It basically says, do it.
Sounds like my dad. Do what you can where you are with what you have.
That's it. That's the greatest secret. Because so much of our lives are restricted by the word called fear. false evidence appearing real. But just do it. Just go and knock and open that door, because behind the door of your greatest fears lie your greatest treasures. So we need to be people who make a plan deliberately from now on. We need to get rid of excuses and be people who try. If people say you failed, tell them, no, I didn't fail. I learned how not to run a business in that way, and I'm only going to be better from the lessons that I learned, and I'm going to implement that and better myself to become a better individual.
Short little success story, Nyana. Hi, our name is Donald, long surname, also known as DJ Dons. I was born and bred in Seke Chitungwiza and started there as a local DJ. Even though people were telling me there's so many DJs, I did what I could. Now I am currently based in East London, South Africa. Chesa, that's my home. That's my home. That is for not letting anybody stop me or listening to any naysayers. Thank you so much for this show. I
love that. Don't listen to the opinions of people. And look at him now. So many people will tell you don't do it. So many people are doing it. But you gotta. I love the word of God. It says all things are possible to those that believe. You gotta believe.
And listen to Uncle Billy.
And trust you me, you will ultimately achieve.
Eunice is saying, hi Nash, hey Uncle Billy. John and others were such an inspiration to me. I started out something last year, didn't think it would work out, but it is going very well, and I will soldier on until I reap the fruits. Thank you so much.
Holla. That's what I'm talking about. This is what we love to hear on us.
This is what we want to hear.
We gotta get started, and we gotta keep things going. We gotta do something different if we're gonna get different results in this year going on.
Yo, sorry we don't have time for this question. I'm so sorry. You must ask questions before the news at the top of the hour, which we are going to go to right now. Maybe you can DM or Uncle Billy yourself and ask him this question. You can catch him on
0712-840-840 on all social media platforms. It's George Billionaire.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Uncle Billy. I always learn something, always take something away from your segments, and the listeners do too. We love the stories. We love to hear the success stories of how listening to Uncle Billy tell you how you can move from one step to the next, elevate your business, your hustle, whatever you are doing. Right now, it's time for us to get to the news at the top of the hour, but do not worry, he will be back for the next installment next week, where we'll be talking about something that we're going to learn from. I guarantee you. This is Capital 100.4 FM. It's time for the news.